Don't come to us when your little hobby fails. Those were the last words my father spoke to me before I walked out of their mansion 8 years ago. My name is Oakley, and I still remember the way his lips curled when he said hobby, like I'd told him I wanted to become a professional finger painter. I was 23, fresh out of undergrad with a geology degree and dreams of studying coastal erosion. All I needed was help with graduate school tuition, just a loan. I'd pay it back. Geology? My mother, Sandra, had laughed, actually laughed while polishing her nails at the kitchen island. Oakley, darling, that's not a career for a woman. It's dirty work, manual labor. It's science, Mom. I want to get my doctorate and doctorate? My father, Benson, had looked up from his newspaper like I'd announced I was joining the circus. We're not throwing good money after bad, so you can play in the dirt for 4 more years. Meanwhile, my brother Cody was upstairs sleeping off another hangover, his third failed business venture already forgotten and forgiven. The family had just written him another check for $50,000 to get back on his feet. But me? I was asking for 12,000 for tuition. Your brother has vision, Dad had said. He's an entrepreneur. You're just stubborn. I'd stood there in their gleaming kitchen, surrounded by marble countertops that cost more than most people's cars, watching my parents dismiss my life's work like it was a phase, like wanting to understand how coastlines change and collapse was some silly whim. I'll prove you wrong, I'd whispered. What was that? Mom had asked, not even looking up. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing. I'd walked out that day with my beat up Honda Civic packed with everything I owned, and I'd made myself a promise. I'd become so successful, so undeniably expert in my field, that they'd have to respect me, they'd have to need me. I just never imagined it would happen quite like this. 8 years later, I'm Dr. Oakley Evans. I have a PhD in coastal geology from Stanford, three published papers on cliff erosion patterns, and a consulting contract with the State Geological Survey. I've testified before Congress twice about climate change impacts on coastal infrastructure. I own a house in San Francisco, drive a Tesla, and haven't spoken to my family since graduation day when they didn't show up. So when my phone buzzed yesterday during a field survey in Mendocino and I saw Mom on the caller ID, I almost didn't answer. Almost. Oakley? Sandra's voice was shaky, desperate, nothing like the cool dismissal I remembered. Oakley, thank God, we need your help. The house, the cliff, it's falling into the ocean. I'd stood there on the rocky shoreline, wind whipping my hair, listening to my mother beg. The whole foundation is shifting, cracks in the walls. The neighbors are panicking. We called some local contractors, but they say it's too dangerous. They can't help. We need a real expert. We need you. A real expert. After 8 years of radio silence, suddenly I was a real expert. Please, Oakley, I know we haven't talked, but you're the only one who understands this stuff. Can you come home? Can you help us? I'd listened to her voice crack on the word please, and for just a moment I felt that old familiar ache, the little girl who'd wanted nothing more than her parents' approval. Then I remembered the laughter, the dismissal, the way they'd written Cody check after check while telling me my dreams weren't worth investing in. I'll think about it, I'd said and hung up. But I didn't think about it. I deleted the voicemail she left an hour later without listening to it. Then I packed my field equipment, loaded my truck, and started driving south. Not because I forgave them, not because I wanted to help, because after 8 years of building my expertise, of becoming exactly what they said I'd never be, I finally had something they needed, something they couldn't get anywhere else. And I was going to make them pay for every single slight, every dismissive comment, every time they'd chosen my brother over me. The drive to their coastal estate took 4 hours. 4 hours to plan exactly how I was going to handle this. 4 hours to prepare for the moment I'd been unconsciously waiting for since the day I walked out. My phone rang twice more during the drive. Mom again. I let it go to voicemail. This time, I was coming back on my terms. The mansion looked exactly the same, sprawling white stucco with those ridiculous columns perched on what used to be a stable cliff overlooking the Pacific. Now I could see why Mom had sounded panicked. The manicured lawn ended abruptly where chunks of earth had simply vanished, leaving a jagged edge maybe 15 feet from the house. I parked behind a cluster of expensive cars I didn't recognize and grabbed my equipment bag. Before I could knock, the front door flew open. Oakley! Sandra rushed out, arms extended like we were long lost best friends instead of estranged family. You came? Oh, thank goodness you came! She looked older, more fragile than I remembered. Her perfectly styled blonde hair couldn't hide the stress lines around her eyes. Mom, I stepped back before she could hug me. Where's the damage? Right to business, I see. Dad appeared in the doorway, and there was that familiar edge in his voice, still trying to control the conversation. Hello, Oakley. Benson. I didn't call him Dad. Couldn't. His jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Cody bounded down the front steps like a golden retriever. Oak, look at you, all official with your fancy equipment. He grinned and tried to ruffle my hair like I was still 12. Mom said you're some kind of rock doctor now. I ducked away from his hand. Coastal geologist, and it's Dr. Evans. Ooh, fancy. He laughed, but it sounded forced. Come on, don't be so serious. We're family. Are we? The words slipped out before I could stop them. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us until Sandra clapped her hands together. Well, everyone's here to meet you. Come, come. She gestured toward the backyard where I could see a small crowd gathered on the patio. The neighbors are so excited to meet a real scientist. I followed them around the house, noting how the back deck now hung partially over empty air. The cliff had retreated at least 20 feet since my last visit. Oakley! A woman with perfectly blown out hair and two white teeth rushed over. It took me a moment to recognize Quinn, my former best friend from high school. Oh my god, I can't believe Sandra's daughter is like a famous scientist now. Famous was a stretch, but I nodded. Quinn, I heard you married well. Her smile flickered. I married for love, but yes, Derek does very well in tech. She gestured to a man in expensive casual wear who was photographing the cliff edge with his phone. We live just down the road now. When we heard you were coming, I told everyone. I used to be best friends with Dr. Evans. Used to be, right, until she'd decided I was too weird and studious junior year. How fascinating, said an elderly man with silver hair and a condescending smile. I'm Norman Bailey. I own the estate next door. He looked me up and down, taking in my field clothes and work boots. You're quite young to be advising on such serious matters. I'm 31 with a PhD from Stanford and 5 years of coastal consulting experience. I kept my voice level. How many geology degrees do you have, Norman? His smile vanished. Sandra quickly stepped between us. Oakley's being modest. She's worked with the government and everything. Mom's voice had that fake bright quality she used when entertaining. She's going to fix everything, aren't you, sweetheart? I'm here to assess the situation. That's all. But you can stop it, right? This from a thin brunette I didn't recognize. The erosion? You can make it stop? I'm sorry. Who are you? Tabitha, Cody's wife. She had sharp features and calculating eyes. We just want to know our home is safe. Our home. Interesting. I need to examine the cliff face first. I walked toward the edge, pulling out my tablet and measuring tools. The damage was worse than I'd expected. Recent storms had accelerated the erosion, but the underlying geology told a different story. This wasn't just weather damage, the entire substrate was unstable. So? Dad appeared beside me, trying to look over my shoulder. What's the verdict? I took photos, made notes, collected soil samples. The group watched me work like I was performing some kind of magic trick. Well? Quinn called out. Can you save it? I looked up at the circle of expectant faces. These people who'd dismissed me, ignored me, written me off, now hanging on my every word. I need to run some tests, I said finally. But I can tell you right now, this isn't just about your house. What do you mean? Norman demanded. I gestured along the coastline. The erosion pattern extends at least half a mile in both directions. Every property along this stretch is at risk. The silence that followed was deafening. That's impossible, Norman sputtered. My house has been here for 40 years. Geology doesn't care how long your house has been here. I packed up my equipment. I'll have preliminary results tomorrow. Tomorrow? Sandra's voice cracked. But we need answers now. We need solutions. I shouldered my bag and looked at my family. Really looked at them. Dad's face was red with frustration. Mom looked like she might cry. Cody was still trying to charm his way through the crisis. 8 years ago, you told me not to come to you when my little hobby failed. I met Dad's eyes. Funny how things work out. I spent the night in my old bedroom, which Mom had converted into a guest room the moment I left. Gone were my rock collection, my geology posters, my bookshelf full of earth science textbooks. Now it was all beige and bland, like I'd never existed. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was up at dawn, running soil samples through my portable spectrometer when the smell of bacon drifted upstairs. Family breakfast, a tradition I'd forgotten existed. Downstairs, they were all gathered around the kitchen island like some twisted Norman Rockwell painting. Dad reading his tablet, Mom fussing over eggs, Benedict, Cody scrolling through his phone, and Tabitha applying lip gloss. Morning, sunshine, Cody called out without looking up. Sleep well in your fancy hotel room? It's fine. I poured myself coffee and stayed standing. Sit! Sit! Mom gestured to an empty stool. I made your favorite. Well, what used to be your favorite. Do you still like eggs Benedict? I'm not staying long. Tabitha looked up from her compact mirror. Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping we could chat, get to know each other better. Her smile was sharp as glass. I love your practical look. So refreshing to see a woman who doesn't worry about appearances. The backhanded compliment hung in the air. I was wearing field clothes, cargo pants, work boots, hair in a ponytail. Next to Tabitha's designer athleisure and perfect makeup, I probably looked like I'd rolled out of a tent. Function over fashion, I said. It served me well. I'm sure it has. She tilted her head. Though I have to ask, don't you ever want to dress up? Go on dates? Find someone special? Tabitha. Cody's voice carried a warning. What? I'm just curious about Oakley's life. We're family now. My personal life isn't up for discussion. Dad cleared his throat. Speaking of your professional life, what did you find yesterday? I pulled out my tablet and set it on the counter. The geological survey data filled the screen: soil composition, erosion rates, substrate analysis. The cliff face is compromised along a 2-mile stretch. The sandstone layer beneath your property is saturated and unstable. Every house from the Bailey estate to the Murphy compound is at immediate risk. Immediate? Mom's voice went up an octave. What does that mean? It means the next major storm could trigger a massive slide. We're talking about losing another 50 to 100 feet of coastline in a single event. That's impossible, Dad said flatly. This cliff has been stable for decades. Climate change has accelerated coastal erosion patterns, rising sea levels, increased storm intensity, temperature fluctuations. Oh, please. Dad waved his hand dismissively. Not the climate change nonsense. I stared at him. Excuse me? You scientists love to blame everything on climate change. It's just a bad storm season. I have 40 years of geological data that says otherwise. Data can be manipulated to support any agenda. The old familiar rage started building in my chest. Are you seriously questioning my professional expertise right now? I'm questioning the liberal propaganda they're teaching in universities these days. Benson, Mom said quietly, maybe we should listen. Listen to what? Our daughter trying to scare us with doomsday predictions? He stood up, towering over me like he used to when I was a kid. This is exactly why we didn't support your little geology phase. You've been brainwashed by environmental extremists. My little geology phase? I couldn't keep the disbelief out of my voice. I have a PhD from Stanford. I've published peer reviewed research. I consult for the state government. And now you're trying to destroy property values with your fear mongering. I'm trying to save lives. Whose lives? Tabitha jumped in. Everyone's been living here just fine until you showed up with your doom and gloom predictions. I looked around the kitchen at their faces: Mom wringing her hands, Dad red faced and stubborn, Cody trying to disappear into his phone, Tabitha smirking like she'd scored points. You called me, I said slowly. You begged me to come here. We called you to fix the problem, Dad shot back, not to create bigger ones. The problem already exists. I'm just telling you about it. Then fix it. Isn't that what we're paying you for? You're not paying me anything, and you can't fix geology, Dad. You can only adapt to it. So, what are you suggesting? We abandon our homes? Walk away from millions of dollars in property? I'm suggesting you take this seriously before someone gets killed. Cody finally looked up from his phone. Oak, come on. You're being a little dramatic, don't you think? Dramatic? I grabbed my tablet and pulled up photos from yesterday. Look at this cliff face. See these stress fractures, this overhanging section. One good storm, and this whole area comes down. But you can prevent that, right? Mom's voice was small, hopeful. There must be something. Retaining walls, drainage systems, something? I studied her face, seeing the desperation there. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. The scale of intervention required would cost millions. And even then, it would only buy you time. How much time? Tabitha asked. Maybe 5 years, maybe 10. But eventually, the ocean wins. The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Well, Dad said finally, I guess we'll get a second opinion. From who? A real expert, someone who isn't trying to push an agenda. I packed up my tablet and headed for the door. Good luck with that. Where are you going? Mom called after me. I paused in the doorway. To make some phone calls. People need to know what's coming. Oakley, wait. But I was already walking away, pulling out my phone to dial the State Geological Survey office. If my family wouldn't listen to reason, maybe the authorities would. By noon, word had spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. I was setting up my equipment for a second survey when a black SUV pulled into the driveway. Out stepped a woman in a crisp pantsuit and sensible heels, Mackenzie Ryan, the county's emergency management director. Also, my high school rival who'd made my life hell senior year. Well, well, Oakley Evans. Mackenzie's smile was all teeth, no warmth. I heard you were back in town, stirring up trouble. Mackenzie, still playing politics instead of dealing with reality, I see. Reality is that you've got half the neighborhood in a panic over some preliminary soil samples. She gestured toward the Bailey estate, where I could see people gathered on the lawn, pointing and gesturing. Norman Bailey called the mayor's office this morning, says you're trying to tank property values with junk science. Junk science? I held up my spectrometer. This is a $50,000 piece of equipment that measures soil density and composition. What's junk about that? The conclusions you're drawing from it? Before I could respond, a small crowd approached from the street. Norman Bailey led the pack, flanked by several neighbors I didn't recognize. Quinn trailed behind, filming everything with her phone. There she is, Norman announced, the so called expert who's trying to destroy our community. Mr. Bailey. Mackenzie stepped forward smoothly. I'm here to assess the situation and provide some perspective. Good, because this young woman is spreading panic with her doomsday predictions. I'm reporting geological facts, I said. The cliff substrate is unstable. That's not an opinion, it's measurable data. Measurable by who? A woman in tennis whites stepped forward. Do you have any idea what you're doing to our property values? My house has lost 20% of its worth since yesterday. Your house is going to lose 100% of its worth when it falls into the ocean. That's enough, Mackenzie said sharply. Oakley, I need to see your credentials and your preliminary report. I pulled out my tablet and showed her my geological survey license, my consulting credentials, my published research, watched her expression shift from dismissive to surprised to grudgingly impressed. Stanford PhD, she read aloud. State Geological Survey consultant, congressional testimony on coastal erosion. She looked up. This is actually legitimate. Of course it's legitimate, I snapped. Did you think I was making it up? But surely, Norman interrupted, there's some way to mitigate the risk without evacuating the entire neighborhood? There are engineering solutions, I admitted, retaining walls, drainage systems, soil stabilization. But we're talking about a multi-million-dollar project with no guarantee of long term success. How much? The tennis woman again. For this scale? Probably 15 to 20 million, split among all affected properties. The crowd went silent. I could practically hear them calculating their share. That's ridiculous, someone called out. There has to be a cheaper option. There is, I said. Move. We can't just abandon our homes, Norman protested. Some of us have lived here for decades. Then you should understand better than anyone how much the coastline has changed. Mackenzie was studying my data, her expression growing more serious. These erosion rates, they're accelerating. Exponentially, the next major storm system could trigger a catastrophic slide. When's the next storm predicted? I checked my weather app. There's a system building off the coast, could hit in the next week. More murmurs from the crowd. Quinn was still filming, probably planning to post this drama on her social media. Look, Mackenzie said, I need to review this data with our engineering team. In the meantime, maybe we could ask Dr. Evans to tone down the alarmist language? Alarmist? I stared at her. People's lives are at risk. Property values are also at risk, Norman said. And frankly, I'm not convinced we should trust the opinion of someone who clearly has an agenda. What agenda is that? You grew up here, you left under difficult circumstances. Now you're back, trying to destroy the community that rejected you. The accusation hit like a slap. Around me, I could see neighbors nodding, buying into Norman's narrative. You think I'm making up geological data for revenge? I think you're a bitter young woman who's found a way to hurt the people who didn't believe in her. Norman, Mackenzie warned, but the damage was done. Is that what you all think? I looked around the circle of faces. That I'm lying about the science to get back at my family? Silence. Even Quinn had stopped filming. Fine. I started packing up my equipment. Don't believe me? Get your second opinion. Hire your own experts. Where are you going? Mackenzie asked. To file my report with the State Geological Survey. They'll want to send their own team to verify my findings. I shouldered my bag. And when they do, they'll reach the same conclusions I did. You can't do that, Norman sputtered. A state investigation will destroy property values permanently. Property values are the least of your problems. I headed toward my truck. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a bitter woman with an agenda. I was halfway to my truck when my phone buzzed with a text from my contact at the state office. Got your preliminary report. Sending emergency assessment team tomorrow. This is big, Oakley. I looked back at the crowd still gathered on the lawn, arguing among themselves. They had no idea what was coming, but they were about to find out. I was barely through the front door when Dad cornered me in the foyer. What the hell did you do? His face was purple with rage. Norman Bailey just called. He says you've contacted the state about our private family matter. It stopped being private when I realized the entire coastline is unstable. You had no right. I had every right. I'm a licensed geologist with a legal obligation to report public safety hazards. Mom appeared from the kitchen, wringing a dish towel like she wanted to strangle it. Oakley, honey, maybe we can work this out quietly, as a family. There is no working this out. The cliff is going to collapse. But if you just modified your report a little, Mom's voice was pleading, made it sound less urgent, we could have time to figure out solutions. I stared at her. You want me to lie in an official geological assessment? Not lie, Cody said, jogging down the stairs. Just present the information more diplomatically. Diplomatically? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We're talking about a potential landslide that could kill people. You're being dramatic, Tabitha said, emerging from the living room with a glass of wine. It's just some cliff erosion. Happens all the time. Actually, I pulled out my phone and showed them the weather radar. There's a major storm system approaching. 70-mile-per-hour winds, heavy rain. If it hits while the soil is already saturated. Enough! Dad slammed his hand on the hall table. I don't want to hear any more of your doomsday predictions. Then you shouldn't have called me. We called you to help us, not to destroy us. I am helping you. I'm trying to save your lives. By ruining our lives? Mom's voice cracked. This house is everything we have. Our entire retirement is tied up in this property. And Cody's business is finally taking off, Tabitha added. We can't afford to lose everything now. I looked at my brother. What business? Cody shifted uncomfortably. I'm launching a luxury coastal retreat company, high end vacation rentals. I've got investors lined up, properties scouted, all along this coastline. Well, yeah, it's prime real estate. It's a geological disaster waiting to happen. According to you, Tabitha snapped, but you're not exactly objective, are you? What's that supposed to mean? Come on, Oakley. You left here 8 years ago with a chip on your shoulder. Now you're back, and suddenly our beautiful coastline is doomed. It's a little convenient. Convenient? The word came out as a growl. You think I'm making this up? I think you're enjoying this, she said, taking another sip of wine. Finally getting to be the expert, finally making mommy and daddy listen to you. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. I could see it in their faces. They all believed it on some level. You know what? I headed for the stairs. Believe whatever you want. The state assessment team will be here tomorrow. Oakley, wait. Mom grabbed my arm. Can't we discuss this? As a family? I pulled free. We stopped being a family the day you told me my dreams didn't matter. I was halfway up the stairs when my phone rang. Unknown number. Dr. Evans, this is Janet from Channel 7 News. We heard about the coastal emergency assessment. Could we get an interview? I glanced down at my family, all staring up at me with varying degrees of panic and fury. Actually, yes. I think the public has a right to know what's happening. Oakley, no, Mom whispered. But I was already walking to my room, phone pressed to my ear. I'll meet you at the site tomorrow morning. Bring a camera crew. I hung up and found Tabitha standing in my doorway. You can't do this to us, she said quietly. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm doing my job. Your job? She laughed bitterly. Your job is to help your family, not destroy them. My family destroyed themselves when they chose money over science. And what about innocent people, the neighbors who had nothing to do with your childhood trauma? That one hit close to home. They'll be safer knowing the truth. Will they? Or will you just feel better about getting your revenge? I closed the door in her face, but her words echoed in my head. Was this about public safety, or was it about finally making them all pay? My phone buzzed with a text from Quinn. OMG, the video of you fighting with Norman is going viral. Raw coastal crisis. Geology drama. Then another from an unknown number. Dr. Evans, this is the LA Times. We'd like to interview you about the coastal emergency. And another. CNN here. Are you available for a phone interview tonight? I sat on the edge of the bed, watching my phone light up with notifications. News outlets, social media mentions, interview requests. The story was spreading beyond the neighborhood, beyond the county. Downstairs, I could hear raised voices, my family arguing about damage control, about lawyers, about how to spin this. But it was too late for spin. The truth was already out there, spreading like wildfire across the internet. And tomorrow, when the state team arrived with their equipment and their cameras, everyone would see that I'd been right all along. The question was, would that vindication be worth the cost? My phone rang again. This time, the caller ID made my blood run cold. State Emergency Management, we need to talk. The helicopter appeared at dawn, circling the coastline like a mechanical vulture before landing on the beach below the cliff. I watched from my bedroom window as a team of officials climbed out, their equipment cases glinting in the morning sun. By the time I made it downstairs, the front yard was chaos. News vans lined the street, reporters setting up cameras, neighbors clustering in anxious groups. Quinn was doing a live Instagram story, positioning herself for the best dramatic backdrop. Oakley! A tall man in a suit approached, hand extended. Senator Ray Martinez. I flew down from Sacramento as soon as I got the emergency briefing. A senator? They'd sent an actual senator. Senator Martinez. I shook his hand, aware of the cameras capturing every moment. I wasn't expecting. When one of our top coastal consultants files an emergency assessment, we take it seriously. He gestured toward the cliff. Dr. Evans, I need you to walk me through your findings. Dr. Evans, not young lady or Oakley or Sandra's daughter. Dr. Evans. Behind the senator stood a woman with a tablet and a man with surveying equipment. Official state geologists here to verify my work. Of course, I grabbed my gear bag. The primary concern is substrate instability along a 2-mile stretch. Excuse me. Norman Bailey pushed through the crowd, red faced and sweating. Senator, I'm Norman Bailey, president of the Coastal Estates Homeowners Association. I think there's been a misunderstanding. What kind of misunderstanding? Senator Martinez didn't even look at Norman, his attention focused on me. This young woman has a personal vendetta against this community. Her assessment is biased, and are you questioning Dr. Evans' professional credentials? The senator's voice carried a warning edge. I'm questioning her motives. Her motives are irrelevant. Her data is what matters. Senator Martinez turned back to me. Doctor, please continue. I led them toward the cliff edge, pointing out the stress fractures, the soil composition changes, the accelerated erosion patterns. The state geologists took their own samples, ran their own tests, nodded grimly at the results. How long do we have? Senator Martinez asked. The approaching storm system could trigger a major slide within days, maybe hours once the rain starts. Jesus. He turned to his aide. Get emergency management on the phone. We need evacuation protocols ready. Evacuation? Norman's voice cracked. You can't be serious. Mr. Bailey, when a licensed geologist tells me an entire neighborhood is about to slide into the ocean, I take that very seriously. More news crews were arriving. I spotted CNN, Fox News, local stations from 3 different cities. The story had gone national overnight. Dr. Evans, a reporter thrust a microphone toward me. Can you explain the immediate danger to our viewers? I found myself surrounded by cameras, the senator nodding encouragingly beside me. This was it, my moment to be heard, to be taken seriously, to have my expertise acknowledged on a national stage. The geological evidence is clear, I said, looking directly into the cameras. This coastline is experiencing catastrophic erosion due to a combination of factors: climate change, rising sea levels, and unstable substrate composition. The next major storm could trigger a landslide affecting dozens of homes and potentially causing casualties. What's your recommendation? Another reporter called out. Immediate evacuation of all properties within the danger zone. This isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Behind the reporters, I could see my family watching from the front porch. Dad's face was stone. Mom looked like she might faint, and Cody was frantically typing on his phone, probably trying to contact his investors. Dr. Evans, Senator Martinez stepped forward. I'm authorizing you to lead the emergency assessment team. Your expertise is exactly what we need in this crisis. Lead the team. Me, the girl they'd dismissed as playing in the dirt. I'll need full access to the affected properties for comprehensive geological surveys, I said. You'll have whatever you need. And I'll need to bill the state for my consulting services. This is a complex assessment requiring specialized expertise. Of course, submit your rates to my office. Norman Bailey pushed forward again. Senator, surely we can resolve this without destroying an entire community's property values. Mr. Bailey, property values are irrelevant when we're talking about public safety. Senator Martinez's tone was final. Dr. Evans is in charge of this assessment. Her recommendations will determine our course of action. The crowd fell silent. Even the reporters stopped shouting questions. I was in charge. After 8 years of being dismissed, ignored, and belittled, I was finally the one with the authority. Dr. Evans, the senator continued, what do you need from us? I looked out over the crowd, the neighbors who'd questioned my expertise, the family who'd never believed in me, the reporters hanging on my every word. I need everyone to clear the area while my team works. This is now an active emergency zone under state jurisdiction. You heard her? Senator Martinez announced. Everyone back to the street. Let the professionals do their job. As the crowd reluctantly dispersed, I caught sight of Tabitha near the house. She was on her phone, and from her animated gestures, she was arguing with someone. Probably trying to contact insurance companies, I realized, trying to file claims before the official evacuation order made it impossible. The irony was perfect. My family, who'd never valued my expertise, were now completely dependent on it, and I was the one who got to decide their fate. The helicopter pilot approached. Dr. Evans, Senator Martinez wants to know if you need aerial surveys of the coastline. I smiled, feeling the weight of authority settle around me like armor. Yes, let's see exactly how far this damage extends. The aerial survey confirmed my worst fears. From the helicopter, I could see the full scope of the damage: stress fractures running like spider webs through the entire coastal shelf, areas where the cliff face had already begun to separate from the mainland. It's worse than I thought, I told Senator Martinez through the headset. We're looking at a potential collapse zone stretching nearly 3 miles. How many properties? 47 homes, maybe more. When we landed, the media circus had grown. National news trucks lined the street, satellite dishes pointed skyward, reporters doing live broadcasts with the unstable cliff as their backdrop. Senator Martinez gathered everyone for a press conference on the beach, well away from the danger zone. I stood beside him at the podium, the weight of dozens of cameras focused on me. After a comprehensive aerial and ground assessment, the senator announced, Dr. Evans has determined that we're facing an imminent geological emergency. Dr. Evans? I stepped to the microphone, looking out at the sea of faces. My family stood in the back, looking shell shocked. Based on my geological survey, I'm recommending immediate mandatory evacuation of all properties within the designated danger zone. The approaching storm system makes this a life or death situation. Dr. Evans, a reporter called out. What's the timeline for evacuation? 48 hours. After that, we cannot guarantee anyone's safety. And the cost of this emergency response? I glanced at Senator Martinez, who nodded for me to continue. The state will cover emergency evacuation costs. However, property owners will be responsible for geological consulting fees related to individual property assessments. How much are we talking about? Norman Bailey pushed forward, his face desperate. I pulled out my tablet and opened the invoice I'd prepared during the helicopter ride. Standard emergency geological consultation is $500 per hour. Given the complexity and urgency of this assessment, I've logged approximately 40 hours of work so far. $20,000? Someone gasped. That's the base consultation fee. Individual property assessments are additional. I scrolled down the itemized list. Soil analysis, structural evaluation, risk assessment reports. Each property will require a comprehensive geological survey. This is extortion, Norman sputtered. This is standard consulting rates for emergency geological services, Senator Martinez said firmly. Dr. Evans is providing expertise that could save lives. I looked directly at my family. However, there is one property that requires a special assessment fee. Dad's face went white. Oakley, what are you doing? The Evans family property. I read from my tablet. Standard geological consultation, $20,000. Emergency assessment surcharge, $15,000. Specialized coastal erosion analysis, $10,000. $45,000? Mom's voice was barely a whisper, plus an additional consulting fee. I scrolled to the bottom of the invoice. Familial disrespect and professional dismissal surcharge, $100,000. The crowd erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Neighbors gasped and pointed. $100,000? Dad's voice cracked. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. For 8 years, you told me my expertise was worthless. You called my career a hobby. You refused to invest in my education while throwing money at Cody's failed businesses. I looked directly into the cameras. Now you need that expertise to save your lives, and expertise has a price. Oakley, please, Mom stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. We're family. We made mistakes, but. Family? I cut her off. You made it very clear 8 years ago that I wasn't really family. Not the kind that mattered. Cody pushed through the crowd. Oak, come on. We can work this out. I'll pay you back, I promise. My business is about to take off. Your business is built on coastal properties that are about to slide into the ocean. I'd say your investment strategy needs work. This is insane. Tabitha appeared beside Cody, her face flushed with anger. You're destroying your own family for revenge. I'm charging market rates for professional services. If that feels like revenge, maybe you should examine why. Senator Martinez stepped forward. Dr. Evans, while I understand there may be personal history here, perhaps we could discuss the billing structure privately? No. I looked back at the cameras. This is a matter of public record. The Evans family owes $145,000 for geological consulting services. Payment is due within 30 days. We don't have that kind of money, Dad said desperately. The house is our only asset, and now it's worthless. Then you should have thought of that before dismissing my expertise as a hobby. Please. Mom was sobbing now. We're sorry. We were wrong. We should have supported you, should have believed in you. Please don't do this. For a moment, looking at my mother's tears, I felt a flicker of doubt. Then I remembered the laughter, the dismissal, the way they'd written check after check for Cody while telling me my dreams weren't worth investing in. I'm not doing this to you, I said quietly. You did this to yourselves. I turned back to Senator Martinez. I need to sign the official evacuation order. He handed me the clipboard. With cameras rolling and my family watching, I signed my name with a flourish. By order of the State Geological Survey, all properties in the designated danger zone are hereby condemned pending geological stabilization. Evacuation is mandatory, effective immediately. The crowd exploded into chaos. Neighbors shouting, reporters yelling questions, my family standing frozen in shock. Quinn pushed forward with her phone. Oakley, this is incredible content. Can we do an exclusive interview? I could really help your brand. My brand? I stared at her. Get away from me. But she was already posting, her fingers flying over her phone screen. Geology, revenge, coastal crisis, family, drama, trending now. I walked away from the podium, leaving my family standing in the wreckage of their privileged world. The invoice was filed, the evacuation order was signed, and my revenge was complete. So why did victory taste so much like ashes? The evacuation was chaos. Moving trucks lined the street, families loading possessions with desperate efficiency. The storm was 12 hours out, and everyone could feel the electricity in the air. I was packing my equipment when Quinn appeared in my doorway, phone in hand as always. Oakley, this is amazing. You're trending on TikTok, Twitter, everywhere. Geology. Revenge has over 2 million views. She held up her phone. Look, people are calling you a hero. Woman destroys family who never believed in her. It's incredible. Get out. Come on, don't be like that. We could do a collaboration. I have 800K followers who would love to hear your story. Think of the opportunities, book deals, speaking engagements, maybe even a Netflix documentary. I said, get out. Her smile faltered. Fine, but you're making a mistake. This kind of viral moment doesn't last forever. She left, and I went back to packing. Through the window, I could see the Bailey estate, where Norman was directing movers with frantic gestures. His precious mansion reduced to boxes and bubble wrap. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Mackenzie stood there, looking official in her emergency management vest. The evacuation's going smoothly, she said. Most families will be out by tonight. Good. Your family's having trouble finding temporary housing. The hotels are booked solid with evacuees. I kept packing. Not my problem. Oakley. Her voice was softer now. I know we weren't friends in high school. I know I was difficult, but this is bigger than old grudges. Is it? Your parents are in their 60s. Your mother hasn't stopped crying since the press conference. Maybe you've made your point. I looked up at her. What point is that? That you were right, that they were wrong, that they should have believed in you. And? And maybe that's enough. I zipped up my equipment bag. 8 years ago, I asked them for $12,000 to pursue my dreams. They laughed at me. Yesterday, they asked me to save their lives. I did. For $145,000. That's called market rates. That's called revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing. She left, and I finished packing. My truck was loaded. My work here was done. Time to go back to my real life, my successful life, the life I'd built without them. I was carrying my last bag to the truck when I heard shouting from the backyard. I found my family gathered around the pool, staring at something in the water. What's wrong? I asked. The pool's draining, Cody said. The water levels dropped 3 feet in the last hour. I looked at the pool, then at the cliff beyond it. New cracks had appeared in the deck, spider webbing toward the house. The substrate's shifting, I said. The pool's concrete shell is probably cracked. Can you fix it? Mom asked desperately. Mom, in 6 hours, this whole area is going to be underwater. The pool is the least of your problems. Dad appeared from the house carrying a suitcase. He looked older, defeated. The moving truck's full. We can't take everything. Where will you go? I found myself asking. Motel 6 in town. It's all we could afford. He met my eyes. Funny how things work out, isn't it? All those years of telling you money didn't matter. That family was more important. Now we're broke, and you're the one with the successful career. Dad. No. Let me finish. His voice was quiet, tired. You were right about everything. The geology, the danger, the fact that we never took you seriously. We failed you as parents, and now we're paying the price. Benson? Mom whispered. It's true, Sandra. We were so focused on what we thought Oakley should be that we never saw who she actually was. He looked at me. You're brilliant. You're successful. You're everything we should have been proud of. And instead of celebrating that, we're standing here watching you destroy us. The words hung in the air between us. In the distance, thunder rumbled. The storm's coming, I said. I know. Dad picked up his suitcase. We'll be gone in an hour. I watched him walk away, shoulders slumped with defeat. Mom followed, still crying. Cody and Tabitha were already loading their car. My phone buzzed. A text from the National Science Foundation. Dr. Evans, your coastal erosion research has gained significant attention. We'd like to discuss a major research grant. Are you available for a call? Another from a publisher. Interested in writing a book about your geological assessment work? We think there's a huge market for accessible science writing. And another from CNN. Would you consider a regular contributor position discussing climate change and coastal issues? The opportunities were pouring in. My expertise was finally being recognized on a national scale. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd dreamed of was within reach. I looked back at the house where I'd grown up, where I'd been dismissed and underestimated, where my family was now packing their remaining possessions into whatever containers they could find. The invoice was filed, the evacuation order was signed, my revenge was complete, so why did I feel so empty? I got in my truck and drove away, leaving my family to face the storm alone. In my rearview mirror, I could see the first drops of rain beginning to fall. The cliff would hold for now, but not forever. Nothing ever did. My phone rang as I reached the highway. Dr. Evans, this is the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. The president would like to discuss your coastal erosion research. I answered the call and kept driving, leaving the past behind me. After all, I had a future to build, even if it felt like I'd built it on the ruins of everything I'd once called home.